Welcome to CLIC Connect. I'm your host, Craig Sullivan. Guess what? Last show of the year. And because of that, we've got a very special guest for you today. But before we bring him out, I want to thank our production partners, Red Roof Franchising and Chicago Title, National Commercial Services Group, California, for their participation and being part of the show from the very beginning. Without them and without you, our audience, we wouldn't have a show. So thank you all very, very much. Our returning champion is the one and only Mr. Information about hospitality, my friend, my brother, the keynote speaker at the 5th Annual California Lodging Investment Conference, Mr. Bruce Ford of Lodging Econometrics. Welcome to the show, Bruce. How are you?
Craig, hello from New England. We're frosty, chilly up here, but it's lovely to see the sun in Southern California, my friend.
Well, yeah, we've got that, and we've got a little bit of road construction going on. So, but it's all good.
Hey, you know, with these virtual meetings, we get a little shot into everybody's neighborhood across the world.
Yes, we do.
Like last night.
And sometimes it's unwarranted.
Last night I was in Shanghai, China. So, you know, I mean,
nice.
Anything can happen, right?
How was the weather in Shanghai?
I believe it was probably about 19, I think, is where we were.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right, my friend, let's just jump right into this. We're doing a deeper dive with Bruce. This is going to be a longer episode than what we typically do. But Bruce, let's start off with a little bit of history on COVID-19 and how it's affected our industry, and maybe where you think you see it going in the future as well, please.
Well, we're pushing on to 19 months now, Craig, since we began really kind of the shutdown. And much of what happened straight away was close the border to America. And then once we closed the border to America, we began to see travel slow down precipitously over a 2-week period to where we got to about St. Patrick's Day, and we all celebrated at home. Where we sit today, there was some pretty positive news. And as we continue to see vaccination rates rise. But one of the real positive that's out there right now is we're seeing investment happen in hotels again. And those owners and management companies, Craig, are buying hotels again. They're investing in their own portfolios again. They're really trying to get the ROI going again in their portfolio because, frankly, with the money sitting on the sidelines for an extended period of time, they're not really able to re-leverage that opportunity. So they spent the early part of the summer refinancing their assets, and now they're looking to use that dry powder to go out and find new acquisitions, hopefully at a discount, but certainly not adverse to buying performing hotels. The franchise companies have had a long road. The road looked a little different if you compare somebody like Hilton and IHG to Marriott. Marriott quickly and swiftly was affected by the pandemic travel slowdown, probably first and probably the swiftest, simply because they have such a high percentage of hotels that they operate across the world. Many of the finest and busiest locations for their Marriott brands. And of course, that number accelerated when Marriott and Starwood merged together. So Marriott felt a swift and quick ramp down of operating performance, a quick and swift ramp down of staff. And many of the franchise companies still are not fully re-ramped back up with staff. And many non-revenue departments that support much of the business are still running on, we won't say skeleton crews, but very thin crews, and not likely to change really through the winter time. They're ramping up hiring at the hotels. They're preparing to get ready, and getting ready. If we'd said in the spring, did we think the fourth quarter would be good for operating performance? We did think it would be good. I think it's been fair. I'm not
Right.
going to say it's been great. I'm not going to say it's beating expectations, but I think fair is a good way to say it. Because we're just not business traveling yet, and we're just not seeing the group demand as of yet. I talked with another um, show director the other day, and he says they're up to now a kind of a peak performance in the post-pandemic. 7 out of 10 of their shows are doing in person, and 3 are virtual. So I said, when you get 10 in a row, then add 12 months onto that, and then you'll start to feel group recovery really accelerating again, which I
I
thought,
think that's a great formula.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's a pretty good formula, because although conferences are coming back, and of course we've attended a couple of them, Craig, the fact is that there's just not as many employees at some of these companies that would have attended these events in the past. So therefore, that naturally limits attendance. And although we felt really good about what we saw, still it's just less. And we'll get into some of that differences kind of by state towards the end. But the sentiments are investment is back in the hotel business. Owners and management companies are busier than ever, but with less people. And the franchise companies are really looking at all aspects of ways to generate revenue. And one of the things they did in the summer, of course, was kind of recertify their construction pipeline.
Right.
What I mean when I say that is we had reached 15, 18, 24 months since franchise agreements has been executed. And there was a lull, if you will, during the pandemic of construction starts. So as a result, the franchise companies went around the horn with all of their franchisees that had outstanding new agreements and said, well, the extensions are no longer free. Okay. And if you want that extension, we're going to need to either buy into that extension, or we're going to let this franchise go and we're going to go resell it. So much of that occurred in, quote, the kind of the second and early third quarter. And so we did see a little bit of a rise in cancellations, but that's kind of faded away to the background now.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I think, yeah, the franchise companies had to do that. Okay. They had to start pushing that ball, closer to the goal line. And, you know, like me, you talk to all the franchise development people around the country,
Yeah.
and they're all saying that, it's going to be about brand conversions, and we're still seeing, a fair amount of new construction in the pipeline as well. But, getting back to the brands and franchise companies, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think, besides bringing their development teams back, say 85, 90%, it's also that supporting services to help them with the PIPs and with brand conversions. I think you're seeing an influx of their design teams and all of that coming back. Is that what you're seeing out there as
I
well?
would say slowly. I think the franchise companies are encouraging owners and management companies to start executing those PIPs
Yeah.
to get it in the pipeline. There's not going to be much more forbearance for that. We need to get it moving. But I think the franchise companies are not necessarily putting their service hat on to say, we'll be happy to handle that for you. They're being very selective about that. So some of the owners and management companies are actually taking purchasing and design executives on the payroll to manage their portfolio of renovations and conversions, because it's a little bit more efficient to do that than hire a purchasing company or hire a design firm to help you. And because the timelines for product orders is a little bit longer, it's a little bit more of a manager. It's a little bit easier to manage the schedule, if you will. But we're seeing a significant amount of soft renovations occur. We're seeing a
Yeah.
significant amount of tech investment, as many owners and management companies saw the opportunity to be better at being able to close down some of their hotels, being able to manage energy consumption, being able to manage water consumption, trying to get their buildings as efficient as possible coming out of the bottom of the cycle, if you will, but also trying to make them look as pretty as possible for when demand returns. So paint and wallpaper and carpet are achievable, manufactured in America in many cases. It's the case goods, in some cases, the televisions or the some of the other materials in the hotel that may come from overseas. That's a little bit more challenging. But yet then again, Craig, where we sit today, talking today, there's already been a 34% reduction at the ports in Los Angeles, which is obviously a great happening. And we want to continue to see that number rise because that's going to impact how we're going to be able to pull out of this pandemic and how we're going to be able to kind of get the country moving again.
Absolutely. It's, the ports of Los Angeles, Long Beach and Los Angeles, San Pedro are three of the most important in the nation. They're deep water. We had over 110 ships sitting off the coast from LA stretched down into Orange County. Now, and it's not just the hospitality goods, it's everything.
Yeah, Disney's 50th merchandise is on there too. I'm hoping I'm going to be able to buy some coming up pretty soon.
Well, yeah, we've got the holidays here, and you've also got massive amounts of multi-family developments across the country. In some cases, they're furnished, or they're at least putting in the microwave, the range, and the refrigerator. All that stuff has to get there. Now, you brought up an interesting point about some of these owner-operators and management companies bringing on in-house design teams. Now, I'm just kind of wondering, is that going to create a shortage for our designer and architecture and procurement people if, the people that were laid off due to the pandemic, and we all know people that have been from all the design firms, is that going to create a people shortage at that side of the equation?
Well, I think their business model has truly changed. I think if you're a multiple property purchasing agent, you're looking at all the portfolios that are selling right now, and you're trying to win those jobs. I'm not sure that there are a lot of large purchasing firms that are looking to do one at a time right now. It's just not effective. So they want to build on those, people that are doing a lot of activity. And we just recently pulled a report here at Lodging Econometrics, a new report I merged together, where I took all of our kind of activities. So those would be new construction projects, renovations, conversions, and then also any hotel that has been purchased by that company in the past 12 months. And when I added all of that up, we had 55 companies across the United States that had more than 10 instances of activity. And again, that's adding up the new construction, renovation, conversion, and hotel transactions. And we had some 15 portfolios of more than 8 hotels that have already transferred this year. So that kind of activity out there, those purchasing companies, once you're buying a hotel in this market, it's now a recapitalized asset and is ready for renovation, whether that's a portfolio of 2 or 3 or 300. The amount of renovations that will happen as a result of that, that's where the purchasing companies really want to play. Yeah. So it's almost challenging if you're only doing 2 or 3 hotels a year at a local hotel company.
Right.
It's easier to hire somebody who can work with the spec book and put those plans in place and just order the product and hire an installer. It's a little bit easier to do that. And of course, there's a lot of small businesses looking to drive towards that. And I have heard some corporate designers who fought through the pandemic with the corporate office have now decided to hang their own shingle because that kind of business is profitable and fruitful right now at the small business procurement level. because their costs are lower.
Absolutely. And if let's look at Aimbridge, arguably, third largest hotel management company behind Hilton and Marriott globally. They pick out regions and then have, people work certain regions. It makes a lot of sense for them and their sheer buying power with all their hotels. Sonesta is another great example.
Yep. Aimbridge is big enough that they can do what they call task force work. So they come in, taking over a hotel, they can send 5 or 6 people to the task force, write the plan for the next 3 years, be in town for a week, and then they're gone.
Our friend Chris Green, over at Chesapeake's been doing the same thing, especially in the new markets that they haven't been in. Their amount of due diligence is really amazing and encouraging all at the same time, because Chris and his team are really good at picking up all the balls that somebody drops. So, I see a lot of that happen.
And if you're in the hotel business right now and you have convention space or conference facilities at your hotel, it's a totally different type of marketing today than it was 12 or 15 or 24 months ago, because really what you're focused on is not trying to get the 4-day business meeting, but you want all the bar mitzvahs, you want all of the wedding receptions, you want all of the pent-up demand for those celebrations,
birthdays, anniversaries, all of it.
That need a larger place. I think that's so local. And it's not calling on the businesses. It's getting out in the community and making yourself available. We have all waited a long time to see people. And I think many of our friends and colleagues traveled for the holidays, whether it was Thanksgiving or planned to travel for Christmas. Certainly, we have heard from the TSA about really travel volumes reaching almost 90% of pre-pandemic levels around Thanksgiving travel, which is just great to hear. It's heartening to hear.
Right.
But of course, holiday travel doesn't always lead to hotel demand because we sleep on the couch at Grandpa's, right?
Yeah, unless you're coming to my house for Christmas or New Year's, you're staying at a hotel.
Okay.
I've got two extra rooms. Bruce Ford, Glenn Hausman both have first call on those rooms. Everybody else is going to the hotel up the street. So
fair enough. But it's heartening to hear that people want to get in an airplane again. But I think so much of our leisure and, of course, bleisure, a top CLIC Connect word, so much of that kind of demand is still going to be a lot of drive-to this year. And people's distance they're willing to go in the car is further than ever before. So, quite frankly, it's safer, from a pod standpoint. And I think people are getting out there again as we're all out looking to get our boosters now so that we can, again, raise our safety rate, I guess would be the way to say that.
I agree. I mean, I got my booster yesterday. I've got some traveling coming up, Sunday. I'm jumping on a plane and heading to Connecticut. It's going to be great to have a trip that isn't business. This one is pure leisure. Plus I've got an addition to the family that I'm picking up in Connecticut.
Now, did you find your parka? You're going to need it.
Yes. Yeah. And I found the thermal underwear too. So,
and the boots.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Very good.
Yes. They're being delivered on Friday. So
preliminary reports say, as I was talking to somebody, is saying the lake effect snow machines are going to start turning on, and we might have a snow games coming up again. We saw a few snow games this weekend, that in college football and some Premier League soccer. So winter is here, Craig.
Yes, it is, my friend.
We will welcome you to New England.
Burr, yeah. So let's talk about this record amount of transactions this year. Sonesta, I think led the pack. creating their own brands and everything else that they've done. But you've got a lot of big portfolios, even small 6-8 portfolios that have been traded. That trophy assets. You've got a little bit of everything. We had the extended stay properties that have done well to good throughout this entire COVID-19 scenario. But what are you seeing on the transaction side?
Well, I think owners that are responsible out there and looking for the best ROI, they're doing all the things. They're buying and they're selling. Okay. So recycling your portfolio's capital is a critical way to continue to improve ROI, because they've spent enough time with their hotels so closely during the pandemic trying to manage expenses. So many times they've recognized maybe this hotel is kind of reached its useful life in our portfolio. So they may be sellers. But I think the types of transactions that are happening probably are not as, shall we say, discounted as many people hoped for. And this would probably be about the third cycle in a row, Craig, where the hype was huge for distressed assets and the result was a puddle. Not too good. So we're seeing performing assets sell, but performing assets that maybe are ready for that big reno, performing assets that maybe are reaching the point where the franchise companies are leaning in, saying, if you want that extension, you got to do that CapEx program. And some owners may be pushing that decision out to a new acquirer of the hotel. The change in use on some properties, you're seeing, something like with Motel 6, taking some of their existing real estate and breaking it in half. So you have an existing, maybe 110 unit Motel 6 that now comes out as 50 Studio 6 rooms and 50 Motel 6 rooms.
Right.
So that's a very popular formula now too. And again, that freshens up the entire assets and puts it on a new trajectory for return on investment.
I agree. I think the ROI, I think the opportunity is now. Okay. I think you're right on all that. Talking to various hotel brokers out here in California, there's been no discounts. Okay. And in some cases, the asset is ended up in a bidding war. Now, has that been to a little bit of manipulation? Probably. But I agree with you. If it's a stressed or distressed asset, you're not seeing a lot of those.
Nope.
You do see owners that are done. This is their third downturn. They've kind of had enough.
Yeah.
You've also got the rise of the motique, the vintage 1960s, 1970s exterior corridor that are being converted to these hip little cool boutiques. So the rise of the motique has started. We've got a bunch of them in San Diego, Palm Springs, obviously, and up and down the coast. So, and there's nothing like California coastal.
Yep.
So,
well, if you put the big investment grade real estate, if you say there's 4 categories, there's office, there's retail, there's warehouse, and there's hotels. Just looking at those commercial assets right there, which one would you want to buy into right now? I think it's either hotels or warehouses. Because
those would be it. Exactly.
That would be it. So if you're in the retail or office business, how many companies are looking at downsizing their office space because the permanent group of their employees don't need it? And they're creating a hoteling environment inside of their offices. The next wave is truly going to be the remaking of the office inventory. Okay. We're even contemplating it in our own office because, quite frankly, if you have something that hasn't been spruced up in the past 10 years, there's so much more you can do inside of an office environment to create a safe environment that mirrors the home office environment that people have gotten used to, so that they'll be willing to come back, right?
Right.
Because again, we're having all of those conversations too, right?
There's a lot of those conversations going on right now. Now, let's just take one of the primary businesses here in Los Angeles, okay? Entertainment capital of the world, film, television, all right there. None of the studios have reopened their corporate offices.
Yeah.
They're not going to till starting in January
Mm-hmm.
sometime. So, I think you've already seen this starting in downtown Los Angeles. Some of these office buildings are now being converted, if not to a hotel, to a multifamily, because we do have a housing shortage here. And, rents have just gone up dramatically. As we were talking before the show started filming, we've got an influx of people coming into New York, from New York to California. And New York is now the most expensive city in the nation for rental property. They're $10 higher than San Francisco. So I think a lot of dynamics are changing. I think also these people in Class A office buildings have discovered, we don't need that much square footage. We can rotate our teams in. Let's give them the benefit of working from home part-time, coming in maybe for 1 week out of the month or a couple of days a week, whatever the scenario happens to be. So I think there's a lot of change coming on. And I think there's also some great opportunities to take some, anywhere from late 20s to date office properties and turn those into hotels if it makes sense. Our friends over at Prism Hospitality just opened up a conversion of an office building next door to their Hyatt at LAX, and it's got 2 Hyatt products in it.
Yeah.
So, great opportunity. Yeah. And that dual branding coming into these buildings is really smart. So if I'm looking for something to buy, I'm looking for something, in that office building that may no longer function as an office. And let's see what we can do.
Right. Health and wellness are certainly at the top of the list. It's in many CEOs' offices in terms of employees' well-being. If you suffered pre-pandemic with a 90-plus minute commute and you spent 3 hours a day in the car,
right?
You don't want to do it anymore.
LA, New York traffic, Boston.
You don't want to do it anymore. And so you got to find some middle ground there. And trust me, managers have been negotiating that middle ground now for what seems like 7 months.
Yeah.
Okay? But, hearing the vaccination rate story, and you and I have said this before when we've been on the CLIC Connect before, vaccination rate percentages have to get up over 70. And we have it now. 18 plus Americans, 71+% now have been fully vaccinated. That's a tremendous happening. When you go down to the eligible vaccinated, you're at about 59%. So and of course that's down to age 5 now in the United States. So we still have a ways to go, but that is an improvement, a top of improvement on top of improvement, where we can put building blocks on top of each other. And we're thinking that come 2Q 2022, that's when we're going to begin to see a normalizing or beginning of a normalizing of demand again. Because I tell a lot of my clients, I say, you want to be confused, go read the operating performance report and try and judge your business based upon that. If you're not in the business of operating hotels, but you're monitoring the hotel business, what you should really be saying right now is cyclically, the hotel business always recovers first.
Yeah.
And they recover first because the need to travel, the desire to travel is a human instinct that has never changed.
Right.
We've been locked up at home for 2 years and we want to get the heck out of Dodge. Okay. And we have money to do it because we haven't been doing it. Okay. And so there's plenty of that pent up demand, but you and I both know leisure can't return the lodging industry to where it was. It requires business travel. It requires conference travel, group travel, and international arrivals, which have just begun too.
Right.
But think about that. Those people from overseas have not been in America in 2 years. If you have a European manufacturer with a US location, they haven't been here in 2 years. So they're just starting to come over again. Okay. And hopefully we don't hit pause on that because of the new variant. Okay.
Yeah.
And hopefully we're able to fight through that. But that's all got to do with vaccination rate. And of course, it's also got to do with continuing to be diligent about your health and safety protocols that we all got pounded into our head for the last 19 months. Don't
Exactly.
give up the goose. It's still very important. It will continue to be very important as we go forward and as we seek recovery.
Yep. All roads lead through hospitality, travel, and tourism. I mean, you look at the amount of people that typically come to the United States for a vacation from Europe,
Yeah.
from the EU, okay, and the amount of money that is spent locally.
Yeah.
We've been devastated having that loss.
Yeah.
It's not just the airlines, the hotels, it's the car rental agencies, it's the restaurants, it's the stores, it's everything. It's Broadway, it's all of it.
I'm going to see Mickey and
yeah.
Minnie pretty soon. I'm really curious how many languages I'm going to hear. Okay, because that's the signal that international travel has returned. Because if you're coming to the United States for the first time in 2 years, you got to go to Disney World, right? Come on.
Exactly. Or come west to Disneyland.
Yes,
So,
either or.
the
You
original.
haven't seen Star Wars Galaxy's Edge yet? I mean, come on. Welcome. We're happy to have you. So, the international travel arrivals are really kind of just beginning.
Yeah.
Just beginning. And we're hopeful that it continues to grow and that we don't see the delay, Craig.
Exactly. Bruce, I want you to put your forecasting hat on, please.
Okay.
You've got all the data. You've got a plethora of services, not just for California, but for the entire country and the entire planet. You're covering the EU, South America, North America, China, so on and so forth, the Caribbean, all of it. So what are you seeing for renovations, PIPs, repositioning? You pulled out a fairly new report. I think you got it last night or this morning. So are you seeing it? Because I know you went through it with a fine-tooth comb. Did you pick up any new trends? Did you see something that, is exciting in that report?
Well, I think the first thing to say is that we are still in a situation in the United States where we're opening more hotel rooms than we're announcing or starting construction on. So we're still going to see a reduction for a few more quarters in the United States in terms of the new size of the new construction pipeline. That could turn around maybe middle next year towards 3Q 2022. And when I say turn around, that's when we'll begin to see the flow of announcements outpace the flow of opens. But we had a lot of pent-up opening demand because, frankly, you didn't want to open in the middle of the downturn, or supply chain issues delayed your opening, or health and safety protocols delayed your opening. So in America, what we have seen that has turned is transactions. The last 5 months have had more transactions than the previous 15 months combined. That is a positive trend. That will lead to continual announcements on conversions and renovations. That will lead to continual announcements on really kind of future third-party management agreements changing hands. Owners who maybe had a few management companies working for them have consolidated down to maybe just one or two. So I think that trend is fully underway in America. And if we're charting that across the world, okay, because the United States typically leads the recovery discussion cyclically and has for the past 4 cycles I've been involved in, and then other regions come behind. And the question is, does it go from America to Asia, or does it go from America to Europe? And our current thinking is that it will go from America to Europe to Asia and then the southern hemisphere coming a little bit slower. And part of that has got to do with countries and their vaccination rates, but also the reinfection rate of people who, frankly got COVID but didn't get vaccinated and then got it again. So, as we know, you can get reinfected. So, the speed with which the EU is vaccinating is a positive sign. So, we'd say if the US is seeing these conditions since July, which I think is the trend since July, that 6 months we'll begin to see them in Europe, and we'll begin to see them in Asia probably 3 to 6 months after that. So that would put today's trends in America happening in the first couple quarters of 2022 throughout Europe. And then probably mid-year to third quarter, that will be happening in the Asia Pacific region, followed swiftly at the end of the year and in 1Q 2023 for the Southern Hemisphere regions of the world. That's a hopeful run.
Yeah.
Okay. And of course, there are several things that need to happen along that road. And, but there are signs that that's the path today.
Very good. Okay, let's touch on one more thing, then we're going to go into the lightning round. Open, closed states and nations. What are you seeing there? I mean, we've got everything coming out of, Africa right now with this variant. We've had, I think, the United Kingdom led the way with no travel into those 6 countries or 7. What are you seeing, on that side of the fence?
So in America today, there are about really 23, 24, roughly half of the United States, we would say, considered to be fairly open. And when I say open, okay, there really are limited mask mandates. In some cases, those states may be going in the other direction with laws and stipulations that say you can't mandate the mask. Okay, we can go over those states, but we don't need to spend a lot of time on that because we know where that is.
Yeah.
But those states don't have much restriction on how many people can be inside. They don't have much restriction on indoor dining. There's limited restriction at the office space level. And so as a result, those open states, they fought a higher infection rate, but their mode has been, we're not closing. We did that. We didn't like it. We're not closing.
Yeah.
And so that's about half of the United States today. And then there's half of the US that are trying to come out with health and safety protocols that are required for large indoor gatherings. Okay. And I've experienced both now, multiple times, traveling around the United States. And the most strict situation that I had was in New York. Okay. And in New York, you had to be vaccinated and ID'd every time you walked inside.
Right.
In California, that was kind of similar when we were together in Los Angeles, Craig, in July. Yep. But it had loosened up then, but now it's tightened back down a little bit more. So inside of many of those states, the only way you can put 500 or more people in a room is to be able to prove vaccination status. And I think we're going to see a few more states head in that direction. So I would expect here as we go into winter that the number of closed states might go up a little bit. And as a for instance, Massachusetts is pretty open right now. I'd probably put them in the open category, but they seem to be trending in the other direction.
Right, true.
So some of that is, really extremely dynamic and a little bit subjective on my side, but I'm really trying to measure, mask mandates, how many people can you have inside collected in one space? What is the requirement when you want to go indoor dining? And then what is the requirement for entertainment venues?
Right.
Okay, as an example. Because we're on both sides of that now. We have some people that are doing concerts where vaccinations are required. And then we have some people doing concerts that say, I won't do the concerts if vaccinations are required.
Right.
So you're on both sides of the fence there. And again, that's kind of why it's America. Okay. Because everybody's got the right to their opinion. It's whether you want to participate in it or not. Okay.
Right.
So, with that being said, it's still a restrictive environment, okay, in general. And many of the states that are more closed than open have the largest populations, okay, being New York and California, if you will. And even Georgia would be on the line. Georgia could be called open, it could be called somewhat closed too, but certainly the big states of Florida, Texas, and California lean more towards wide open. You wouldn't even know the pandemic occurred. So,
and weather being part of it. I mean, okay,
sure.
Let's look at California. Weather patterns, Northern California are dramatically different than Southern California.
Mm-hmm.
And, from Santa Barbara down, you've got more of a mild climate. Now, I'm sending you a text when it's 64 degrees and I'm putting on my New England Patriots hoodie that you gave me, okay? But we've also got microclimates. I'm coming to my house the other day from Costa Mesa. It's the sun shining and it's 70 degrees. I get into Newport Beach by my house and the fog's rolled in. Yep. So, then you throw Palm Springs into the mix and it's, a lot of different things. So I think that weather pattern's going to have a lot to do with it. All right, my friend, it's time for the lightning round. 2 minutes. Producer Danny's going to put on the clock.
Okay.
And it's word association, just the first thing that pops into your head. Are you ready?
Fire.
All right, 2 minutes. Pro sports.
The New England Patriots.
Winter in New England.
Snow sledding.
Stakeholders or shareholders?
Shareholders.
Balance.
Yoga.
Patriots.
Mac Jones.
Team.
First.
Holidays.
Christmas.
Friday night audit.
Whiskey and Boston sports. How can we associate the hospitality industry?
Did you hear that, Glenn? Tom Brady.
Florida man.
Irish politics.
Jameson.
Super Bowl prediction.
Bill Belichick versus Tom Brady, and we win this time.
There you go. And you know what? You did it with 54 seconds. I think that's a new record. We'll have to have producer Danny check that out.
I'm all about the records, Craig.
There you go. It's all about the data. I know that, my friend, my brother. Thank you for joining us. This has been a deeper dive with Bruce Ford of Lodging Econometrics. Not only does he have the best data and information, they've got a plethora of services to help you, the hotel owner, the development company, brands, lenders, brokers. The list goes on and on. Bruce, it's time for a shameless plug. How can people get a hold of you?
So you can find me on Twitter, BFINH. You can find the company on LinkedIn, Facebook, and also lodgingeconometrics.com. Go ahead and sign up for our releases. We talk about pipeline and opportunity all over the world. And of course, Bruce at lodgingeconometrics.com. If today has generated any questions for you, please feel free to send me a note and I'd be happy to pick up with you.
My brother, thank you. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
I know we'll be talking
Craig.
before that, but and Bruce will be on Friday Night Audit again very soon. Actually, it'll come on after we post this show, but we're going to have fun on that, and I'll be talking to you later. So thank you, Bruce.
You bet, my friend.
Thank you, our audience. I also want to thank our production partners, our good friends at Red Roof Franchising and Chicago Title National Commercial Services Group, California. give them a call. Tell them that producer Danny and I sent you. They'd love to hear from you. Are you looking for a new brand? You want to do a brand conversion? You want to talk about a new extended stay product? Give our friends at Red Roof a call. You need help getting your title insurance, your real estate deals done on time. Call the National Commercial Services Group, Chicago Title. They work nationally. They do a little bit of international work, but I don't have all those countries. But DM me and I'll send them to you once I've got them. So then last but not least, well, actually not last, but something's coming after this. But I want to also tell you, March 10th, 2022, CLIC 5, live and in person. And you get to meet Bruce Ford. He's our keynote. So you're going to find out everything about the development pipeline there and more. If you're an owner, an operator, management company, brand, lender, insurance carrier, any type of service provider, third-party hotel professional, you should be at this conference if you are in the California hotel market or want to be. So remember, CLIC 5, live and in person, March 10th, 2022 at the JW Marriott Anaheim Resort, our new home and the crown jewel of the Anaheim Resort area. So now I want to bring in the person who makes this all happen before we sign off. So here she is, producer Danny.
Hello.
How are you, my dear?
I'm good, Craig. How are you?
I am great. I wanted to thank you for everything you've done. It has just been the absolute joy. I look forward to this day more than any other than possibly Friday, but that show involves Glenn Hausman and alcohol. So, well, that's
fair.
A different conversation.
Very fair.
So, but thank you for everything that you're doing. You were in Europe this year. You moved from San Diego back to Idaho. You've had a very busy year. You've been doing a lot of things, and you've done an outstanding job producing, directing, editing this show. Thank you. Couldn't do it without you.
Oh, thanks so much, Craig. I super appreciate you and all of your patience with me this year, too. So thank you.
Oh, you've been patient with me. And guess what? You get to meet Danny at CLIC 5 too. She's going to be there. So, a lot of people are going to be there. Danny's going to be, there. And we've got Bruce. And I just can't wait. The season is just about over. Thank you to our audience. Thank you to producer Danny. And you know what? I can't wait for us to start having our production meetings and where we're taking the show for the next season. So I'm really looking forward to this.
Super exciting.
Give your uncle, your mom and dad, your family my love and wish them a Merry, Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year for me.
Yes, will do. Oh, thank you, Craig. You as well. You as well. Enjoy the sun down there. I miss it.
Definitely. Danny, I'm going to put you back in the back, so I'm going to close the show. Thank you, our audience, once again. And you know what? It's the holiday season. Be safe. We want to see you next year, okay? And also remember to be kind. Share your knowledge. Now go be amazing.